Guess what? I don't care about reformulations, and you know what? I bet you don't either. It seems like everyone is prophesying the end of the fragrance industry with their apocalyptic interpretation of fragrance news and reformulations. It is certifiably trendy to hate reformulations nowadays. You will see lots of videos on reformulated fragrances, on fragrances that shouldn't be reformulated, on fragrances they hope won't get reformulated, and this all stirs up this kind of frenzy to buy vintage pre-reform varieties of a fragrance. So on eBay, you'll see vintage reformulated fragrances hundreds of dollars more than the original retail price. And people buy these! Or what's worse, people will see this news of reformulation and they'll stock up and hoard 13 backup bottles like they're doomsday preppers. I got my backup bottles, Mavis! Now there is legitimate news about reformulations. That is a legitimate thing. Reformulations truly happen. But should we care? Now first let me talk about hypothetical reformulations. This happens a lot too. You'll hear news of maybe someone smelling something different in a fragrance and immediately the buzzers go off. Has it been reformed? It's been reformed. It's been reformed? When was it reformulated? Without any credible proof of a fragrance being reformulated, we fragrance heads just assume that a fragrance has been reformulated if it smells slightly different than the way we perceived it before. Now this is kind of weird because when we smell something, we're smelling something and judging it subjectively. And when we pronounce an absolute on something, that means that we have proof based on our subjectivity that something actually objectively happened. Now there's only two ways that you can know that a fragrance has been reformulated. Number one, if the perfumer or the actual perfume house has disclosed that it has been reformulated. Or two, you have a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer to shoot the juice to examine the molecular structure of everything and the components in that juice. So come on. Let's stop theorizing if a fragrance has been reformulated, and if it's been reformulated, let's just talk about that first. So as I said, fragrances actually do get reformulated. But why do they get reformulated in the first place? And that's the prevalent theory, right? That a fragrance house is skimping on the quality just to make a quick buck, right? So let me get this straight. A company that is selling a product to make a buck is trying to further make a buck. But let me ask you this. If a company had a fragrance that was selling like gangbusters, if that fragrance somehow had to be reformulated to make a buck, do you think that a company would change something that is so beloved by their fan base and alienate their fan base just to make $1 off of them? Do you remember the time in the 90s when Coke reformulated their drink? And how did that go over? Business-wise and money-wise, it would make absolutely zero sense for a company to reformulate a fragrance just to make a few bucks. Fragrance is incredibly personal and visceral, and when you have a consumer base that smells this stuff and believes it and lives it, and you're gonna change it? So I was mentioning this very topic on a Facebook forum, and Max Husler from Maximilian Must Know, great channel, I'll have a link down below to that. He mentioned more succinctly, and really more comically, he said, yeah, so a perfume house has this amazing product and they're selling like crazy, and all of a sudden they just say, hey, let's go F it up. So if money is a really poor choice in reformulating, why do they reformulate in the first place? The IFRA, they suck. Actually, they call themselves IFRA, which is kind of funny by itself. They do regulate certain components of fragrances, like oak moss, or more specifically, a carcinogenic compound within oak moss. So this is not an argument for IFRA. I don't like what IFRA does, though they do have regulations. So that's one reason. Another reason is just ingredient sourcing. Fragrances obviously have a high number of natural ingredients within them. And even if they have synthetic ingredients, a lot of those synthetic ingredients are derived from natural ingredients. So if you have a low yield of a certain type of rose or jasmine one year, that price of that ingredient is going to go straight up. If a natural disaster occurred and wiped out a whole thing of vetiver, that price is going to go straight up. So if you have a fragrance that is primarily rose and jasmine and vetiver in there, and you have all those ingredients and somehow the world just conspired to have natural disasters with these ingredients, your price for that fragrance is going to go straight up. So guess what options you have? You have raise the price or reformulate. No company wants to reformulate because they have to, but they have to. So we live in a world where reformulations are sadly inevitable. So with that in mind, how do we respond to that? Do we freak out? hoard 13 bottles of La Nuit? Or do we spend our savings for the last 5 months buying that pre-reform vintage Dior Homme Intense? I say neither. We can overreact, or we can just accept it. I have chosen to accept it. And not only that, I have also chosen to believe that reformulations aren't really terrible. So here's the first reason why I don't really care. We're already living in a post-reformulation world. Now I want you to think about this. Every fragrance that you have is already post-reformulation. Even if you bought a new fragrance released day one, your fragrance has already been regulated by the regulations in place by IFRA. So essentially, your fragrance has already been reformulated because of the rules set in place. And how awesome is the fragrance world right now? We have thousands, hundreds of thousands of great, awesome fragrances to choose from. Sure, there's crap sometimes, but man, there are some good ones out there. And they're already, in essence, reformulated. Reason number 2, creativity and technology will always outpace regulation. Now, I do truly wish that we lived in a world where we didn't have to abide by regulations. But even with that, perfumers have to think more creatively and out of the box to construct a fragrance if they have a whole lot of rules. Perfumers and fragrance houses go out of their way to make sure that their fragrance adheres to the regulations set forth by IFRA. And not only that, but they also try to go the extra mile and foresee future regulations that might occur later down the road and make the formula as future-proof as possible. So then a fragrance becomes the skill and the creativity of the actual perfumer to abide by the rules and do what's in their head at the same time. Think about Jean-Claude Ellena and the creativity, imagination, and genius that he has with fragrances. He creates minimalistic fragrances that probably won't ever be reformulated. Think about Guerlain. Guerlain puts oak moss in their fragrances, but you know what they did? They took the carcinogenic molecule within the oak moss and just took it out and put the rest of the oak moss in. You know what? IFRA was okay with that. And there'll always be technological advances with scent too. There are hundreds and if not thousands of aroma molecules being made every year. Those molecules and compounds will be added to a perfumer's arsenal, and they'll be able to think more creatively with more materials that they have and construct new fragrances. And we see that with trends and fragrances every single year. Reason number 3 why I don't hate reformulations. Here's a visual one. This is Dior Homme, and this is Dior Homme Intense. Now there's a whole huge public ordeal with these being reformulated. And you know what? I don't care. I smelled the original version, which who knows how many times that's been reformulated, and I've smelled the current version. And they smell so similar, I just really don't care. I've smelled both versions of this, post and pre-reform, and I like both of them. I have the current reformulation, so I don't care there either. In some cases, reformulation actually causes a fragrance to be better or different, but not worse. And point number 4 that I want to make about why we shouldn't be upset about reformulations, we're all, for the most part, early adopters with fragrances. Now, early adoption can sometimes hurt you when it goes to technology, but when it comes to fragrances, early adoption helps you. If you like a fragrance, buy it now. If you're worried about a fragrance being reformulated, buy it now. Being an early adopter with a fragrance will keep you from having your favorite fragrance being reformulated. So buying your favorite fragrance right away pays in the long run. The last point that I want to make is that fragrance is ephemeral. It's fleeting. We wear a fragrance and it goes away in just a few hours. Our fragrance hobby is ever changing. What we like and dislike is ever changing. You're not even guaranteed that you will like the same fragrances 5 years from now that you love today. This fragrance journey is all about smelling good for the moment. If our favorite fragrances disappear, we can just find a new one. And you know what? That'll be good for the moment too. Now, I honestly hope they never change fragrances that I love, like Ombre Nuit by Dior, Creed Green Irish Tweed, Sova by Slumber House, or Hermes Poivre Samarcand. I hope those stay like that forever. But if they change them, I'll just move on. When crafting a fragrance, there are many roads up a mountain, and a lot of times you can make a fragrance smell the same by using different ingredients and using different paths to get there. So maybe in the future, if my favorite fragrances get reformulated, perhaps another fragrance will come along that smells just like it, or maybe even better. So let's all do ourselves a favor. Spray on some fragrance and chill the heck out.